This podcast is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Love your local nonprofits and build a better community with a gift that costs you nothing today. Name a Valley nonprofit in your estate plan and create a legacy that tells future generations what matter to you. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Your action will inspire others to make a difference in their own way. Remember the Valley. Ask your accountant, financial planner, or attorney about plan giving options. Plan now. Give later. Impact tomorrow. Learn more at valleygivesback.org.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding, TV sucking ideas from our head, public discourse just about dead, we'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. He's on the line, yeah.
I'll take her with me.
All right.
All
right. What? Blanket. All right, I got to put the blanket in the dryer. Sorry about that, Chris. I know you probably haven't eaten dinner, but
That's cooking now as I speak.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll of valleyindy.org. Today, I'm going to try something different. I think I've tried this once or twice in the past, and usually it's just me, and it's lame and boring and pathetic and self-centered, but it is called Navel Gazing, so you've been warned. But for this episode of Navel Gazing, I'm going to try again to do commenting on the commentators. This is it's not a bit, it's a segment that New Haven Radio does, New Haven Independent Radio, WNHH 103.5 LP FM over there in New Haven. Paul Bass has a guy come in, a reader, a longtime, I guess, reader of the New Haven Independent, and they talk about what people are talking about on the website. So, without further ado, my guest for sort of the inaugural episode of commenting on the Commentators Valley Indy Edition is Christopher Bowen, a member of the Seymour Board of Selectmen. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Eugene. Glad to be a part of this.
Yeah, so before we begin, I noticed I didn't get a chance to read it, but you put on Facebook the agenda packet for, is it tomorrow night's Board of Selectmen meeting?
Yes, on my Facebook, Bowen for Seymour, my political page, I put the entire 50, and what I'll be doing every meeting, we meet every other week, is whenever we get a packet, I'm going to put it online. It's not privileged information. It's nothing that we talk about in executive session. And the number of people who requested this information, it's basically 2.
Hey, that says something.
Like you, Ethan, and one other person in town requested this information. So you know what? It's good enough for me. Upload it all and let the people determine what we're going to talk about so that if something does strike someone's fancy, they can talk about it. And by strike someone's fancy, I mean we're dealing with town finances. We're dealing with things that we're going to vote on. Sometimes $1,000 outlays. These are the kind of things that people should be notified about before we go to vote.
Yeah, it's great. I'm sorry.
I typically get the packets on Friday. We all get them at the same time. I didn't get it because of I can't access my town email right now, so I had to ask Kurt to send it. But typically I get it on Friday. Usually by Saturday I try to have it uploaded.
And for anybody who doesn't know, this is, every time there's a Board of Selectmen meeting or Board of Alderman meeting or whatever legislative branch you have running your town, whatever they call it, they have an agenda that they talk about, and everyone looks at the agenda and it has items of discussion. And what's great is these agenda packets give the public a little bit more, because a lot of times as somebody who spends a decent amount of time at government meetings, local government meetings, you don't really have the context of the conversation. Sometimes people are referencing letters or documents, and you have no. And they might as well be speaking another language. It's often very much like joining a conversation, a complicated conversation that's already started 5 minutes ago. So kudos to you for doing that. My push. That's happening nowhere other than like Valley Indie Twitter and this podcast. I would love to see more towns put their meetings online, stream them live.
We do. I think Seymour CT is it, but our Board of Selectmen meetings are all not streamed, but they're put up a day later.
They're put up on YouTube and, or is it YouTube? Yeah, I see them on YouTube.
Definitely YouTube.
And
I don't
play
know
them
about
on
anywhere else.
They play them on Comcast Channel 10, and you can also get them on the Comcast Channel 10 webpage. But yeah, not just. I mean, I grew up in Somers, New York, which is now I couldn't afford to live there in 1,000 years now. But growing up, it was sort of blue collarish. But they had their meetings online, not online. I'm sorry, they had them on local access cable in the 80s. I remember sitting when I was in high school in 1987 or so, covering one of these meetings. I got to write the teleprompter type thing, whatever it is, and I accidentally inserted a giant green arrow over like the town supervisor. So to me, that was very funny. But it just it's sort of amazing to me that it's 2020 and the majority of towns that the Valley Indie covers doesn't stream their meetings, and most don't put them on local access. I mean, maybe Board of Selectmen of Ansonia has started to do it. That's within the last decade. Seymour Board of Selectmen, but no Shelton, no Derby. And I know every time I stream one of those meetings on Facebook, they get 1 billion views. So in this age where we're trying to be transparent and put agenda packets out there and combat misinformation as traditional media dies and guys like me hang on by a thread, start streaming the meetings. Yeah! All right, that's all I got.
Honestly, I want to stream every elected board. I don't think it's necessary for the commissions, but every elected board really should have meetings either streamed or archived. I know Kurt's talked about that as a goal as well. It's just a matter of the logistics.
Yeah, and I don't know what
right now. I think our town YouTube has selectmen and planning and zoning.
Oh, there's planning and zoning? I didn't know that. Wow. I got to go check that out because that's often a hotbed of issues in any town.
Started putting the planning and zoning meetings up, which is big with the Smith Street application going through.
That is affordable housing application that's taking place up there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So
with those meetings, it's very, very good to have those available.
Yeah, that
and also awesome. I want to call out Molly McCool. She's the new person, one of the new assistants at Town Hall. She started writing up the minutes. They are so detailed and so good that you get everything that happened at the meeting. There's no guesswork. There's no, this happened and they voted on this. It is this person said this person said that. Molly McCool is incredible, and thank goodness Kurt hired her.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That is a tough job, being a minute taker, one of those municipal meetings. I mean, sometimes I come out of the meeting and my head is spinning as I try to make sense of it and relay it back in a way that people can understand. So hats off to the people that do that. All right, so that's transparency. Chris Bowen for Seymour has the agenda packets for the town of Seymour. What'd you say?
Number four.
What do you mean number 4?
Bowen, number 4, Seymour.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry, I was like, wait a second.
That's all right.
You got a list of demands?
I'm gonna. No, I'm also gonna plug myself a little bit here because I'm a politician. And that's what I do now.
Oh, all right, Mayor Koch, go for it.
I ran on a ticket of transparency, and I've been trying to live up to that as best I can. I put up a schedule of all the meetings that I'm going to be attending that week, on my every weekend, so that people know where I'm going. It's going to be okay. Board of Selectmen this week I've got Board of Selectmen and the American Legion. Anything that I do that has to relate to the town goes on that schedule.
Oh, that's very cool too. Yeah, I noticed that. That's how I knew you were going to the CCM workshop last Saturday, right? Or was that this Saturday? Was that this past weekend?
It was this. No, not this past weekend. Last weekend.
I hope you had a good time.
Yeah,
that was dedicating a day.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. They were on a really informative session, especially on FOA.
That's awesome. Good for you. All right,
And
so commenting on the commentators. So
I'm gonna preface this by saying I haven't read. I pretty much stopped reading comments at this point, so a lot of this is going to be fresh to me.
Okay, that's interesting because I had sort of a existential crisis last week. It was all about the 15th. There were a couple of Facebook posts on Valley Indie Facebook. That's facebook.com Valley Independent Sentinel that sort of made me question, why do I even have comments? You know, like I thought at one point the New Haven Independent, in the spirit of promoting civic engagement and sort of encouraging people to be civil, they turned off comments on their website for about a week. And of course, it's New Haven Independent. They're very fancy. Anything they do gets in the New York Times. You know what I mean? They're just like, whatever. Well, I'm like the whatever. I'm shoved in the trunk. But I did think, like, I would like to turn off the comments on the Facebook page and just give everybody like a breather, because the comments, I thought, in my opinion, and I know I'm not supposed to express opinion, but I'm not talking about a particular news story that I'm covering. I'm talking about the reaction to things that the reaction to the reaction, I guess. So, but Facebook, I can't even kill the comments if I wanted to. Facebook, and I thought this was possible at one point, for a business page, you can't turn off comments. There's no option to do that.
Facebook's page management really is annoying me. I'm not going to lie. You can't turn off comments. Not that I would on mine, but I also notice little things like if I'm posting from my phone, I can't include a link and have it show up as a preview. It'll just show up as a rote link.
Okay.
And I looked into the reasons for that, and the reasons are, misinformation campaigns let you, try to edit the metadata of a website and misdirect, so we just killed it all together. And I'm like, that stinks. If I have to post something, I have to wait until I get home because I can't get to Facebook from work. I have to wait until I get home at 8 o'clock at night, transfer everything from my phone or wherever else, or if I have it on my work laptop, transfer it from there. I have to log into work. And, it's like a 4-step process just to update my page.
That's interesting. I find that a lot. Like when on YouTube, Valley Indie, we started to put a lot of videos on YouTube, and, maybe we get 1,000 views on a video. And we did have some of them. There's the monetization option on YouTube. And I think in 11 years we made like literally 10 cents because, you have to have like 1 million views to actually start making money.
But it's like
then
a 9,000 view.
One of the Pauls, whichever one it was, did that, where he had photographed or videotaped a dead body from a distance. And so they did all these changes a year or two ago or 3 years ago. And basically we weren't getting any money, but our potential to get any money from YouTube, from people watching our videos, was just gone. It was over. There was no, it's just funny how they make these big corporate decisions, and it really does hurt the little guy. And I feel like that with Facebook too. You have more control over a community page. Community pages can turn off comments on an individual post. They have much greater control over the content. They can prevent people from posting. And a regular Facebook business page has none of that, and it just drives me nuts. Because last week there was one story I wrote in particular, and I was going to say I'll get right to it, but it's been 12 minutes. We've been babbling, and we haven't gotten to the topic of the podcast. Welcome to my world. That's I talk too much, but I did a story.
We were winging it.
Yeah, right. There's no script here. And it doesn't matter that you didn't read all the comments, because I can sort of summarize them, because a lot of them got repetitive, which is another thing. There should be a point where I can just turn off the comment. People have said the same thing 100 times. I think there's a point you should be able to turn off. But anyway, I was at an Ansonia Board of Aldermen meeting last Tuesday, I think, and they did a lot. It was my first meeting that I was able to attend in a very long time in Ansonia, probably since their budget process, because of kids and getting the kids from school and my wife's work schedule, new job, and all that good stuff. But I counted at the end of the meeting, there were at least 7 stories I was going to write out of that meeting. And I wrote 2 immediately, sort of the ones that I had looked at the agenda beforehand and read the agenda packet and got the basic source material out of that and went to the meeting just to see how it would be handled. And one of them was Diane Stroman wrote a letter to the mayor of Ansonia. It was included in the agenda packet, suggesting that perhaps Ansonia use gender-neutral titles for the Board of Aldermen. And usually that is... you'd have to go through a charter change process and officially change the name. She had suggested it go from the Board of Aldermen to the Board of Alders. And she said it would weigh, and I'm paraphrasing, it's a way to be more inclusive as a city. Okay, now, things like this are happening all over. I knew there would be some reaction. But at the meeting, it really wasn't. It was brought up for a second. It was noted. John Marini said, well, one option, if you choose, is to form a charter revision commission, and they'd have to put it on there. And ultimately, if they ever wanted to do this, it would require the vote of the people. I noted in the story that some other towns have done this. Some towns have voted it down. But anyway, long story short, the comments were just... I don't think I've ever had to delete so many comments in a single thread. And it just became, I mean, when somebody gets on there, if you get on, I mean, I'm all for free speech, of course, but if you just get on there and you're just calling somebody a jerk, I just don't feel the need, or I don't feel compelled to keep that on my page, which is also a business. So There was a lot of that. I don't know, Chris, did you notice the reactions to that particular post?
So what I did was I saw the post when it went up, and then like a half hour later, it was like 84 comments. And I'm like, oh, God, now what? And I think at that, when you start seeing on something like that that has something to do with what I call culture war politics, not that Diane Stroman was even thinking culture war. She was just thinking, you know, a very, very, very minor equality issue. Anytime you see that many comments in that short of time, you know it's bad. And I hit the comments and just like, yeah, I'm noping out of this.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like, I mean, I'm fine with people disagreeing. That's as American as apple pie. Sorry to use that cliche, but I don't understand why people have to get to name calling so quickly when your first,
not only that,
your first post off the top just is F this and F that and F you and the horse you rode in. I'm like, whoa,
this is stupid.
Whoa.
This is dumb. You're dumb. And here's the thing. Couple things. I noticed a couple trends. I didn't read too many of the comments because, you know, I take pills to not be depressed. I don't, you know, I'm trying to help that, but
you know, that's, I'm with you there.
And so it's like, well, so this is what the government, no one cares. No one cares. 100 people said no one cares. You cared enough to make a comment on this issue to say no one cares. That's a lot of effort. You know, you have to go into the thing. And here's the thing. You say you noted in the article. Do you remember when you wrote the article about parking meters?
Yes, with interviewing you about potential for parking meters downtown Seymour.
Yeah, and
about
you know,
6 or 7 months ago.
It's one of the many things on our mind, and everyone lost their minds. They lost their minds in the comments, and one of the local store owners actually said, because she is used to not getting a good response from government, she lost sleep over it for a week. And this was something where it's like, I got some of the feedback, and it's like, okay, dead issue, not even a consideration anymore. But a lot of the people who commented on the story, I'm willing to bet they didn't read it.
Because there is that.
So when you say you noted it in the story, you already lost.
That is, yeah. What? And there is this whole pattern. Earlier in the day, I think, or maybe it was the day before, January 15th, I had posted a link to either the CT Mirror or CT News Junkie about that congressman that is somehow, the candidate, the landscaper from Simsbury, who is caught up now in the whole Trump impeachment, Ukraine issues. Right. So I saw that all the comments there, I posted it, and I'm like, oh, I kind of braced myself. I tend not to post national issues, but it was just too juicy. I'm sorry. It's such a story that I couldn't help myself. It's got everything.
That's a hanging curve. You got to post that.
But so I thought there'd be a lot of people saying, whatever, liberal jerk, liberal media, you get kind of those responses right away. But actually what happened was all people who were just like, Trump's no good. Trump's no good. And then later in the day, the gender-neutral story was the opposite. It was like two sides or two extreme ends of the political, not extreme ends, that's not right. The left and the right had both were both commenting exclusively on each post. And that's just, I think that comes down to Facebook being the closed system. And we see when our friend comments on a page, we see that. Maybe we get that notification. And then we go in there and you have those thought bubbles. So there was two exclusive thought bubbles is what I'm trying to say without judging the right or wrong of either or my opinion on either. You see that on Facebook and how it sort of becomes rabid. And that post, the gender neutral one, just went, it kind of went off the rails. And it did made me think, I get that people were triggered or angry. I understand that. But
one-upsmanship.
Yeah, and
I see it in you know where I see it? In the community pages.
And the more people disagree, the more entrenched they become in their opposite positions.
It's not even when they disagree. You know when I see it the worst? When a certain number of people agree, and what ends up happening, especially if it has something to do with a parenting issue, everybody just dogpiles. And nobody can just go in and say, yeah, I kind of agree with that person. It has to get worse, and it has to get worse. You have to make sure that your comment gets the most likes and your comment gets the most feedback or whatever currency the social media network you're on has, until finally poor Brittany has to go and delete the whole post and say, all right, everybody out of the pool. Enough.
Yeah, and I am jealous of the community pages because they have at least the power to do that. I try to get in there and say, hey, just keep in mind these are our neighbors. You know, a lot of times we have crime stories. If I post something about a crime stuff, the victims of the crime or the victims of the arrest, they're commenting in the story. These are your neighbors, and sometimes we forget that.
I think we do, because if I go onto a comment site for CNN, let's just say CNN, and I say, you know, hey, Liberty Bibberty, you're a no good fuddy duddy, you know, who cares? That's going into the ether. If I call so-and-so who's using their real name on Facebook, Liberty Bibberty, or no good fuddy duddy, I might see that person at the supermarket. And that's what I think we kind of forget that when people comment on these stories. They just fire off the first thing that comes to mind.
And that's it, and they're done. They're done, because a lot of times I can respond to you, or I'll delete one if it's just. I mean, another thing I'm trying to do in 2020, a lot of times the comment threads can go off the rails on tangents. And I think in this age of misinformation and post-truth and everything's a lie and don't trust anybody, I've started to just get rid. If you go off on a tangent, go put that on your own page. I've started to, because then it becomes a whole fight about something that I have a post leading. You know, it's about a Girl Scout selling cookies. What does Trump Bush have to do with it? So I just started to delete those as well. And just one of the common themes of the comments under the is it time to drop the man in Ansonia Alderwoman, that was the story to which I linked. A bunch of people said, well, I can't believe this is a priority. I can't believe this is what politicians are concentrating on. There a lot of comments were like that. And
I promise you, we can multitask.
But that is, and also, and I don't know, you know, it kind of changes the way you write and publish a story, because then I started to think, what did I do wrong here? The story was very brief, but I mean, I wrote the Big Y story that I published last week. That was also out of that meeting. I wrote a story about how they filled two vacancies.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Do you have to go?
Okay. No. I just wanted to cut you off and go back to this point before I forgot it.
Yeah.
Going back to your story. Here's the thing. Your story on our conversation when we were talking about, because you called me that night and asked me questions about it, and the story was really good. I had no objections to the story whatsoever. I was never misquoted. I was never, you know, even misattributed. It was a factual story, and it's still, everybody, you know, the reaction was still visceral. And I'm not sure what you can do to change that other than just put in the headline, you know, it's like, is it time to remove the man in Alderman? And then just put in bold quotes, please read the damn article.
Yeah, one person pointed out that the headline was got people riled, and I just, you know,
I like
it is a headline. I meant
2020.
I wanted to draw people into the story. I also specifically didn't want to use the term gender neutral in a headline, because I thought that would just make people not read the story and just immediately share their first thought on the term gender neutral. But one of the other things, yes, they said, okay, why are they concentrating on this? And it's just, they're not concentrating on it. It was just a letter in an agenda packet, as the story noted. I didn't put it on the front of the Valley Indy. I mean, it was under extra, but this wasn't a 70-inch story. I tried to note that other towns have been doing this and considering this all over the country. It's not exactly new news. The other thing, I'm reading this one comment. Somebody said, oh, please, if she didn't like it, why did she run? That comment was said a lot. If you knew the term was alderman, why? Well, maybe, I mean, people run to affect change. Nobody runs for office saying, I want the status quo. Everything has to stay as is. That's not why people run for local office or any office. So
yes, it was a dastardly plot to run for a volunteer position to, I don't know, be triggered. It doesn't make sense. These are volunteer positions.
Right.
I'm not giving up 2 Tuesdays a month Not to mention the other events I got to go to, the time I spend reading the packets. You know, I was working down here yesterday for 3 hours just reviewing everything in that packet. And I don't do that because of some vast liberal conspiracy to change gender pronouns. I do it because I love my town and I want to make it a better place.
Yeah, and that was one thing. The other thing that sort of, it's also bothered me on a personal story as someone who's interviewed Diane Stroman a bunch of times over the years. I mean, I tried to note in the article, this is Diane Stroman. Yes, she's a new politician. She was in Team Inc. She was the vice president. I might get that. I might have the title wrong, but she was a high-ranking person in Team Inc. in Derby, a community action agency for I think 30 years. She has been involved in every single community service outlet in the Naugatuck Valley that you can be involved in. She has won every civic award for her commitment and community service that you can win in the Naugatuck Valley.
Yes, the Board of Aldermen for Diane Stroman is a step down. So it was also frustrating to see people, well, we have this. They would throw out a given topic, and I was thinking to myself, Diane Stroman was on a committee that created she has tackled that before she was a politician. There's obviously not only that, but here's the thing I've learned. Online, you're not going to get any real discussion. That's why I stopped reading the comments. That's why, for the most part, stopped making them. Yeah. You're not going to get anything out of it. I did okay, reasonably okay in my election because I was knocking a bunch of doors. Right. And just talking to people. And I had some long conversations, and not all of them were pleasant. Not all of them were the kind of conversation where you go away smiling. You know, there were a couple contentious talks, where the language is flying and all that. But the fact of the matter is I still talk to them. Yeah. And at the end of that face-to-face conversation where you sit down with the person, even if you call each other a couple names that I can't say on navel gazing, at the end of that day, there's a mutual respect gain there that you don't get online because it's just into the void.
Yeah, I'm just looking at one comment I hid. I don't know if I banned the person. A lot of times I'll ban a person if it's your first comment you've ever made. You just liked our page, and then you just drop an F-bomb in the first comment. Who needs that? I mean, you're essentially, at that point, to me, you're marked by the number of the beast in the omen. You're evil.
Not here to read detailed analysis about zoning.
And this comment was just, effing more ridiculous bullcrap. Just another pathetic attention grab. Just do your job and do it well. That's more important. I get the sentiment, but it doesn't apply here. It doesn't apply here.
Diane Stroman does her job very well.
Anyway, so that's that. And I'm not really saying neither here nor there, but I just wish people would disagree in a more civil way. And I know I'm being Pollyanna.
I don't think it's going to happen online.
No, yeah, and that's sort of what's
too easy to go. It's just too easy to go off the deep end.
That's sort of the sobering realization I had last week. I was so depressed after. I can't turn these comments off. I can't. It's just I have to, and I get notified every time. So that's 150 comments. It reached almost 7,000 people. It's kind of like, oh, come on! I just want to.
I blocked all notifications on my social media unless it's my personal page or my political page. Okay. I don't want my. I used to have Twitter vibrate every time I got a mention. Oh, that had to go away.
See, I have that as well.
No. I had to make that go away.
I'm paranoid because I used to be the they called it the online editor for the News Times at Danbury, Connecticut in like late 2005, 2006, where they had just discovered that there's a thing called the website. Newspapers were really, really late to the game. So we had unfiltered comments, and I remember I was away. I don't know. I was like in Niagara Falls or something, and somebody took it upon themselves to write every racist term you could think of just on every story, hundreds of them. And I'm away. I had no way to get to it. I'm calling people. It was just a nightmare. So that I have like a disorder remembering that. So I have to read. I read every single comment that's on the Valley Indy Facebook because I'm always worried that's going to happen somehow. But the other thread. So that was the gender neutral story. The reaction to that.
Yep.
The other story. Actually, Chris, you triggered me with one of your comments, Mr.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. I was pissed at you that day.
I know. We haven't
I was pissed. I had to talk myself out of making that go farther, or else I would have set off your spit. I would have set off your filter.
You know what, though? I apologize.
Like, I almost texted you, like, you fuddy-duddy.
Well, you could always do that. Because, yeah, I guess I got obnoxious. But it's like you deal with these comments all day. And there were 3 things happening on one day that I was just done. But, okay, so it was a story about Oxford Brewery. I linked to a Connecticut Post story. Oxford Brewery, this is the headline, settles for $225K in Trooper DWI crash. And so the first comment was, "Hold up," by Mr. Christopher Bowen. "Hold up. State trooper goes to a brewery in a company car, gets hammered, drives off, slams into 2 civilians, and the brewery has to pay?"
Yes,
now,
and I am well aware of dram laws.
Yeah, that's might be the first of many that'll have to pay. That was my initial, because that set off. I'm looking at it, that was 5 days ago.
And
there's 11 replies.
Off the deep end at that point.
Well, what we started a fight about was when I had linked, because I realized that people weren't aware of the Dram Act. Not that you weren't, but clearly people were not aware of the Dram Act. And some of the comments in that thread were like, "Oh, somebody wanted a payment right away. It happened so quickly." And no, that's actually how the law works. You have to make your claim within something like 120 days. Nancy Marini,
there's a statute of limitations on this.
Yeah, Nancy Marini actually explained it very concise.
She's a lawyer.
In a post. So I was grateful for that. But you had said something, Chris. We argued over the police. You said something like, I don't have it right in front of me.
I remember what it was.
Okay, go ahead. Because I'm blabbing.
These bartenders. Do you really expect these bartenders who are working in a brewery, they got a party full of hammered cops, you going to cut off a cop?
Yeah.
In a sea of cops, are you going to be the one to cut off that cop and then have a bunch of cops come back at you and, probably good nature? Because let me tell you something. I've gone drinking with a lot of cops in my day, and they're fun dudes, but they get hammered just like the rest of us. That was the ultimate point I was trying to make. It's like, whether you're a cop or whether you're cleaning up the toilets that the cops go in, at the end of the day, alcohol removes your inhibitions.
Yeah, I guess. And then my point was,
you have to acknowledge that there's that social pressure, that additional, not even peer pressure, it's a social pressure to take care of law enforcement. And it's generally a positive thing, but it can be warped.
Yeah, and I don't remember what I was. Yeah, I guess that I didn't. You know what? Here's the problem.
To that point, but then you basically called me an a-hole, and it was like, all right.
You know what? Because now we're talking about it. Now we're talking about it. I see, like, okay, I thought you were saying something like, the way I read it, misinterpreted it, was that, and I apologize. I thought you were saying, well, I'm more likely, if a cop, I'm not going to cut off a cop because he's a cop, because he could, like, pull me over later and, tase me or something like that. And my immediate thought was, I don't know, man. I used to hang out at Overhill up in Derby, and there was one time I had to get a ride home from the police because something that happened in the bar, and they were like, look, you're talking to us. I was a witness to a crime. And they're like, they gave me a ride home. So my thing is, like, I would be much, if in this, this is totally fancy.
We also come from different worlds. We also come from different worlds here.
Right. Yeah. My brother and father are police officers, and I kind of come from that. My brother's retired. My father still is a police officer after, like, literally 50 years. But right. Yeah, I mean, it was always like, if I got in trouble, people always used to be like, "Oh, yeah, your dad was the police chief. I guess you get away with anything." It's like, no, man, I can't do anything. I can't.
It's worse
because it's family shame. You're bringing into that.
So whereas you come from a family of cops. I'm a card-carrying member of the ACLU.
And a criminal. You're a criminal. You're saying you associate with criminals.
Well, that too, but that's out of context. Don't use that in a mailer against me.
We can't even. Yeah, we can't even joke like this anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's never going to change. But no, the thing is, I generally have an anti-authority streak. I don't even like my own authority. I don't like, one of the reasons I ran for office was basically so I could get into government and leave you alone. So you who come from a family of cops, me who come from, F the man, those two clash occasionally. Now, the difference is online, some of that context is lost.
Right.
Whereas if we're sitting around a bar stool somewhere, and if one of us says something the other one is offended by, the other one can just go, you know what, you fuddy-duddy, and go from there.
This podcast is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Love your local nonprofits and build a better community with a gift that costs you nothing today. Name a Valley nonprofit in your estate plan and create a legacy that tells future generations what mattered to you. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Your action will inspire others to make a difference in their own way. Remember the Valley. Ask your accountant, financial planner, or attorney about plan giving options. Plan now. Give later. Impact tomorrow. Learn more at valleygivesback.org. Yeah, and
that's really what happened.
The other thing that happened in that thread, because you know what, I don't even remember. I remember I was being snarky. I was being a jerk, which comes across as unprofessional. Which I think, I also think, well, in truth, and this is a great compliment to you and to how long we've gotten along over 11 years. I think you were more of a jerk because it was me and because we know each other well. Right. I figured, you and I can be jerks to each other.
We can be jerks to each other.
Although it sort of has one person.
Maybe not in public.
Right. Yeah, it might have been my bad. But I've apologized. Have you accepted my apology?
Oh, of course.
All right,
100%. Good. I apologize for being a jerk, too. I'm always a jerk.
There was one person who got in there. I think I had said something like, maybe I used the term IMMA or something. I don't know. I used some slang in my in my writing, and this person was like, can we at least have a grammatically correct conversation? Something like that. Sort of alluding to my use of slang, and that really got me mad, because I'm like, hey man, I'm using my voice as a writer to express myself in a certain way, and the way I was using that slang was because I was trying to throw a passive aggressive shade at Bowen by not even using correct language, trying to be dismissive. So there was a point to it, and then I was getting into a fight with that guy. So then that was my Sunday.
Everybody wants you to be real until you say something that they don't like. Then it's like, oh, why don't you consider your station? I go through it too.
That is true. That is
you know
very
how many
true.
times I've been told. You know how many times I've been told you have to be careful what you say as a selectman, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. And then I get pulled aside by the serious politicians, and they're like, no, really, here's how I would have exploited this.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I get a lot of when people don't if I put on something they don't like, or I express myself in a way they don't. They always try to sort of clamp down on you. Well, you have to be blah blah blah. And I'm okay.
The good thing about Seymour is I'm learning that I like a lot of the people that I deal with. I mean, I asked all the selectmen for just some time to sit down, get some coffee, whatever. Let's just get to know each other a little better. Some couldn't do it because they had work. Others, had a thing. Some did, and it was great. We had a great conversation. Kurt took 3 hours with me. And a lot of the things that we talked about, I'm not going to talk about specifics, but a lot of the things that we talked about had nothing really to do with politics. They were all just, advice on how to be a politician, how to be a public figure. Say this, maybe don't say that. Definitely don't say that. Things like that.
Yeah, it is interesting. You can see it in certain politicians, and I'm thinking of Miller. I'm thinking of in Danbury, Mark Boughton. When you write a story about them, they never take. They understand it's never personal. And if I publish something that they don't like or they feel is unfair, they can come to me and talk to me about it, and I'm more likely to listen because, we've had real conversation. I remember Mark Boughton, he said to me once in his office, he's like, look, partly because of me, whenever somebody Googles my name, it gets that, I'm a racist, because he had this whole thing with illegal immigrants in Danbury. It was
I remember that.
Huge thing in 2003, 2002, and I was one of the Danbury reporters at the time. So it made me think when he put it bluntly like that, people are human. We're all human. So, and I think Seymour realizes that. That's why I don't think there's as much insane infighting that you might see another time. But we've said that 1,000 times. You do it at what? Behind, like at the bar afterward? So I got to crack this somehow.
What? No, all we do, we have disagreements sometimes. We'll fight over it. But then when it's done and the vote's been cast, win or lose, it's over.
So that's that. Yeah, it's
good. Over. There's no backbiting and there's no mudslinging after the fact. Maybe with a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, I like our political environment. I want, not one time has my political party been mentioned since I got elected. It's not a consideration. It just isn't. It's not.
I was going back, Chris, to
nobody really. And you know what? I love working with Kurt. Use that against me in a couple of years. Some people might be mad about me saying that, but Kurt's great to work with. We're going to have some disagreements over time, and that's fine. I think he's honest. I think he's, sincere, and that's all I want. The only thing I want out of a politician is pass a character test. If I think your character is worth something, I don't care what side of the political divide you're on. I'll work with it. I'm
looking as you're doing all the kumbaya stuff. I've just found my comment that I I tagged you in that brewery post.
You're just bringing it back, aren't you?
I just, you know what? It was right in front of me. I said something. I don't know what you had said, but I said that's like saying, "Oh my God, I'm too scared to cut off postal workers." And then I said, "Oh man, I insulted you. I'm so sorry. That's called you simple." Pissed. Oh man,
the first one I was like, jerk. Okay, that's kind of nothing to do with it. And then you said that second one. I'm like, he's having a bad day. I'm going to curse this guy out. I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to get off Facebook.
Yeah, what's great about you, Chris, I'm really impressed. I think like if that happened in 2009, you probably would have sent me anthrax or something. You would have lit up that page.
I would have lit the page up. And I'll tell you right now, that little angel on my shoulder telling me, remember, you're a selectman, that kind of backed me out a little bit. It's like the last thing I want to talk about at the next meeting is why I was a jerk to the guy on the Valley Indy page.
Yeah, why you were arguing with the blabbermouth who doesn't show up for the meetings. So the other thing I just wanted to quickly touch upon was it was also from last week, and I'm choosing these because these were our hot button, most commented Facebook posts from last week. I don't have it in front of me, but so I'm sitting here, whatever, I'm doing work. I don't know, it's been a very busy news weeks in the Naugatuck Valley. I mean, we all know there's been a lot going on, a lot of serious stories, a lot of stuff's been happening. So in the middle of all this, I keep getting knocks on my door from a guy trying to sell me solar panels.
Which is funny because I got my solar panels from them.
Hey, and I'm not going to name the company. I'm sure they're fine, but I mean, first of all, my house, I'm wedged between two taller houses. I get literally 5 minutes of sunshine a day. So he's telling me, "Oh, you're quiet. Look at him." No, I'm not. Come on, man.
See, now my sales guy was good. He told me flat out, somebody's going to come out. They're going to take a look at the house and make sure we can pull this off.
Oh wow! See, my guy was he was like a poor man's Alec Baldwin from Glengarry Glen Ross. Like this guy, he was overly aggressive.
No, they didn't come to me. I went to them.
Oh, okay. So I
went to them because my next door neighbor, the Whites, they got their solar panels. Great people, and they got their solar panels. So I was asking them some questions like, "Oh yeah, this." Started calling around, checking out the laws, and I called the Trinity guys. It's like, "Hey, let's talk about this because it's just resellability, things like that." And they came out and they were great, honestly.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean,
but I will say, I've had your experiences with certain pest control companies.
Don't name them. I don't want to get sued.
Well, certain pest control companies.
Okay, certain.
And, right. And, it's like, "Hi, just wanted to talk about your pest control issue." And I'm like, "No, thanks, I'm good." And it's like, "Well, I'm just saying, your window over here might be cracked." I'm like, "No, I'm good." And by the third time I have to say no, the F-bombs start dropping.
Well, yeah, that's what I didn't get. I mean, I'm on Hawthorne Avenue in Derby. It's a busy street, so there's people by all the time. And hey, look, I've knocked on people's door cold plenty of times. Somebody gets shot in the street. I've gone, "Hey, what's your neighborhood? What do you think?" You do those stupid reporter questions. So I've done that. I get it. Like I always give people the time. I don't hide. A lot of people.
I'm a politician who gets by on door-to-door knocking. That's the number one reason I did okay.
Right. But
in the last, relatively well for Democrats in the last elections because I knocked a bunch of doors.
But some of these door-to-door guys, the solar guys specifically. Actually, I had another guy about switch from UI as your energy supplier. I just don't. Come on now. If I tell you no, just that's it. Because I started to think, like, this guy was so aggressive with me, and I got my dog, I got a new kitten I'm trying to hold the cat so it doesn't jump out. It's not an outdoor cat. And no out. I guess cats shouldn't be outdoor at all anymore. I'm thinking this guy is just trying to distract me because he was being so ridiculous, as clearly, and it was like 12 degrees out too. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking he must have somebody going around the back of my house to steal my snowblower, like out of my garage or something. Because all I was thinking was like, is my garage closed? This is so odd. Because it gave me that type of feeling where I'm like, the hairs are going up. They're going up on the back of my neck. That is wrong. So.
Yeah. And even in the best case, it's like, okay, I understand you're going for commission, but I understand what you're going through, and I'm trying to do this. I'm working so hard so I don't get shamed in public. So I get it, but at the same time, you got to know when people say no. And I'll end this note because my wife just texted me about dinner. But
okay, yeah,
I'll end this
fine.
note with a funny story from the campaign trail. The very last door I knocked on the last weekend before the election, I'm up in one of the hilly areas of Seymour, and I knocked on a door. Now I've said before I don't use the software that they give you, so I don't know whose door I'm really knocking on. And a gentleman opens the door, and we know each other from basketball, and I'm not going to say we're hostile, but we don't really get along that well.
Okay.
And
would you throw him an elbow or something like that in a game?
No, we're just personalities.
Okay.
And he's making dinner because it's that time of night. It's dark outside. I don't have my car with me. I'm just walking around Seymour knocking on doors. He looks down at he looks at me. I look at him. He looks down at the walk cart that I have, and we both at the same time just said, "Nope."
Oh wow.
Nope. He said, "Nope, not interested." And I said, "Nope, we're good." He closed the door. I walked away. That was the house, the last door I knocked before the election. Perfect way to end it.
Hey, but I guess you turned out all right. And if you want to see Chris Bowen, he'll be appearing when this posts tonight at the Seymour Board of Selectmen meeting. That's
tomorrow. Tomorrow when this post goes up.
Yeah. This will be up
so,
Tuesday the 21st.
Out, civic engagement.
Yeah,
or
and
watch it the next day on YouTube.
All right, and I'd ask you questions about the meeting, but you got to go and I got to go because my wife actually came down and was mouthing something. Either my house is on fire or my dog ran away. It could be either one of those.
Either way, it's bad news, and we both need to answer to our significant others.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for doing this, and I'll talk to you soon.
You got it, brother. Take care.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding, TV sucking ideas from our head, public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur, yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the opens each day, online clickbait, a prurient way, it's free information here to stay. Not even hookers give it away. Advertising, metastasizing, newsroom shrinking, constant attrition. We'll ride the dinosaur. We'll ride the dinosaur. Dinosaur. Deadlines, bylines, pictures too. An editorial comment for $1 or $2. Fire down the block, the murder next door. And now we wonder what it's all for. and freely of funny pages, the mayor's wages, criminal seats, corruption schemes, ink stain wretches asking tough questions. Well, ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. The presses are running all through the night. We're printing the truth with all of our might. We're platform agnostics, got that interweb too. Buy an ad, see what we can do. We still have subscribers, still have our fans. We're here every day, so give us a chance and we'll make an art stand. Just hold us in your hand, yeah, and we'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.